Stocks tick up today in the futures despite hurdles out there. Trump talks about disinfectant and the mainstream media goes nuts about it. Ocasio-Cortez votes against the stimulus increase. And Whitmer is protested. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. I think my body is just conspiring against me to get myself any sleep because I just drifted off last night and was out somewhere on a deserted island, far, far away from the world and all of this stupidity and politics, with Dove Cameron, of course. And I was roused back awake by. I've had a tickle on my throat before, I understand what that feels like, but I was roused back awake by something that felt like somebody had driven a nail through the back of my throat and a coughing fit to come with it. And then, as with any good coughing fit, it took me forever to get back to sleep. So I'm feeling good right now, but we will see what happens at the end of my work shift, of course. But of course, this is Contemporary. We've got a lot to get to today, but before we do, make sure you head on over to freedomscoop.com. Freedomscoop.com is your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs. We have great shows like The Generational Gap, like Stephen Ignoramus. We've got The R-Rated Conservative. We've got Wyatt Birkenhoff, and we have got Freckles and Britt. Go and check all of those creators out over there. It's always going to be a good time, and you've got a lot of different perspectives to see the same news stories from. So let's start with the stocks from Investors Business Daily. Dow Jones futures turn higher despite Intel, Google News after coronavirus stock market rally stalls on Gilead drug. This is from Ed Carson. Dow Jones futures reversed slightly higher Friday, along with S&P 500 futures and Nasdaq futures, despite weak Intel guidance and Google spending curbs. On Thursday, the coronavirus stock market rally erased big gains on negative news about Gilead Sciences' drug remdesivir in treating COVID-19 patients. Intel earnings and sales growth accelerated in quarter one, but the Dow Jones chip against guided low on quarter two EPS. Intel stock sold off in extended trade. Meanwhile, the Intel earnings report also nicked IBD leaderboard members AMD stock and Nvidia stock, though Microsoft stock turned higher. Of course, Bill Gates is the one that's going to chip us all with his vaccine, so we'll look into that. Intel competes against AMD in PC chips and against AMD and Nvidia in chips for data centers. Intel's comments about PC demand are important for Microsoft, even though cloud-related offerings have refueled revenue growth and Microsoft stock in recent months. And AMD is, by the way, clearly the superior chip. Microsoft stock, AMD stock, and Nvidia stock are also IBD 50 components. Meanwhile, Google reportedly plans to slash its marketing budget in half for the second of 2020 and is instituting a hiring freeze reflecting the coronavirus recession worldwide. That's according to CNBC. Citing internal Google documents, Google parent Alphabet fell 1.5% before the open, pairing overnight losses. Facebook stock sank nearly 1%. Google and Facebook earnings are due next week. Finally, Zoom Video Communications will join NASDAQ 100 on April 30th. The coronavirus play will replace Willis Tower Watson, which is merging with Aon, AOC. Zoom Video stock rose 3% before the open after soaring to a record high on Thursday. Dow Jones futures rose 0.3% versus fair value, erasing overnight losses. S&P 500 futures climbed 0.3%. Nasdaq 100 futures advanced a fraction after falling more than 1% overnight. Intel stock and Microsoft stock are Dow Jones, S&P 500, and Nasdaq composite components. AMD stock, Nvidia stock, Facebook stock, and Google stock are S&P 500 and Nasdaq members. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So I looked at the chart and yeah, they were all over the place. It was a roller coaster yesterday, and they wound up falling about to where they started from. So we will see what happens today. I'm always excited to watch the stocks. especially given the fact that right now, with everything down, so much of the left considers the stock market to be the economy. But as soon as they're all the way back up, it's not going to be the economy anymore. All right, let's move on to CNBC. Stocks closed flat after wild session as investors assess Gilead coronavirus treatment. This is from Fred Imbert and Thomas Frank. Stocks were taken for a wild ride on Thursday that showed just how important finding a treatment for the coronavirus is for Wall Street. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closed just 39.44 points higher, or 0.2%, at 23,515.26. Earlier in the day, the Dow rallied more than 400 points. COVID cough. The S&P 500 dipped 0.1% to 97.80, while the Nasdaq Composite closed just below break-even at 84.9475. Both the Nasdaq and S&P 500 were up more than 1% at their session highs. The Financial Times, citing documents accidentally published by the WHO that Gilead Sciences' drug remdesivir did not improve patients' conditions or reduce the coronavirus pathogen in their bloodstream. Those findings, according to the report, came from a clinical trial in China. Okay. Yeah, that's who we want to listen to. Gilead took issue with the report, saying because the study was terminated early due to low enrollment, it was underpowered to enable statistically meaningful conclusions. As such, the study results are inconclusive, though trends in the data suggest a potential benefit for remdesivir, particularly among patients treated early in the disease. Equities attempted a rebound on the back of Gilead's statement before closing along the flatline. Gilead Sciences shares closed 4.3% lower. The report and Gilead's subsequent statement came a week after Stat News reported that Chicago patients taking remdesivir to treat coronavirus were recovering rapidly from severe virus symptoms. That report lifted market sentiment, sending stocks sharply higher. Any sort of treatment is key for people to getting, or let me rephrase that. Any sort of treatment is key for people to getting people. No, that actually says that. Wow. Is key for people to getting people back out into the world. Says Kim Forrest, founder of Bokeh Capital, on CNBC's The Exchange. When the results were announced of the trial last week, you could see the market react, and it was a sigh of relief. If I get this, I may not die. And that's something important that we need to think about when we're looking at these drugs. Now, we haven't found a cure for the coronavirus, but we really haven't found a cure for the flu either. We have found treatments that ease off the symptoms, and that's what we were looking at with hydroxychloroquine. And now this remdesivir is that, no, they don't relieve the viral load. They just make the symptoms manageable, so you don't feel like you're dying on the bed for a week and a half, or God forbid, getting to that point where, as Tim Pool described it, you have pink fluid coming up out of your lungs. And I haven't heard about that for quite a while, so I'm not sure if that was just a hyped up article he was reading from, or if that was actually happening, but I heard about it for a week, like right at the beginning of this, and then I never heard about it again. So, let's talk about what I think the biggest news of the day is going to be here. And I'm going to start with an article from The Guardian. Because why not The Guardian? Coronavirus. Medical experts denounce Trump's theory of disinfectant injection. From David Smith. Donald Trump has stunned viewers by suggesting that people could receive injections of disinfectant to cure the coronavirus, a notion one medical expert described as jaw-dropping. At Thursday's White House Coronavirus Task Force briefing, the U.S. president discussed new government research on how the virus reacts to different temperatures, climates, and surfaces. And then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, Trump said. 1 minute. And there's a way we can do something. By an injection inside, or almost a cleaning. Because, you see, it gets in the lungs, and it does a tremendous number on the lungs. So I'd be interested to check it out. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with, but sounds interesting to me. Dr. Deborah Birx, the task force response coordinator, remained silent, but social media erupted in hilarity and outrage at the president, who has a record of defying science and also floated the idea of treating patients' bodies with ultraviolet light. Several doctors warned the public against injecting disinfectant using UV light. Robert Reich, a professor of public policy at the University of California at Berkeley, there's an objective place, and a former labor secretary tweeted, Trump's briefings are actively endangering the public's health. Boycott the propaganda, listen to the experts, and please don't drink disinfectant. Walter Schaub, the former director of the Office of Government Ethics, added, It is incomprehensible to me that a moron like this holds the highest office in the land, and there exist people stupid enough to think this is okay. I can't believe that in 2020 I have to caution anyone listening to the president that injecting disinfectant could kill you. Trump was already facing a backlash over his championing of hydroxychloroquine, an anti-malaria drug, as a therapy for the coronavirus, a quixotic effort amplified by the conservative network Fox News. Ooh, Fox News. Research has found no evidence that it is beneficial, and a government vaccine expert has claimed he was fired for limiting its use. Undeterred, on Thursday, Trump showcased an emerging result from Department of Homeland Security research that indicates coronavirus appears to weaken more quickly when exposed to sunlight, heat, and humidity, raising hopes that it could be less contagious in summer months. So, I decided that it's time to let you find all the facts and draw your own conclusions, like I always tell you to do. So, I pulled up the NBC video of this. We're going to listen to what Trump said, and I'm going to let you decide, and then we're going to read a fact check from the Daily Wire. But let's get this up here and going. Turn on your speakers here. Hang on,
within the conditions we've tested to date, the virus in droplets of saliva survives best in indoors and dry conditions. The virus does not survive as well in droplets of saliva, and that's important because a lot of testing being done is not necessarily being done, number one, with the COVID-19 virus, and number two, in saliva or respiratory fluids. And thirdly, the virus dies the quickest in the presence of direct sunlight under these conditions. And when you look at that chart, look at the aerosol as you breathe it. You put it in a room, 70 to 75 degrees, 20% humidity, low humidity. It lasts, the half-life is about an hour. But you get outside and it cuts down to a minute and a half. Very significant difference when it gets hit with UV rays. Mr. President, while there are many unknown links in the COVID-19 transmission chain, we believe these trends can support practical decision-making to lower the risks associated with the virus. If I could have my next slide. And while that comes up, you'll see a number of some practical applications. For example, increasing the temperature and humidity of potentially contaminated indoor spaces appears to reduce the stability of the virus. And extra care may be warranted for dry environments that do not have exposure to solar light. We're also testing disinfectants, readily available. We've tested bleach. We've tested isopropyl alcohol on the virus, specifically in saliva or in respiratory fluids. And I can tell you that bleach will kill the virus in 5 minutes. Isopropyl alcohol will kill the virus in 30 seconds. And that's with no manipulation, no rubbing, just spraying it on and leaving it go. You rub it and it goes away even faster. We're also looking at other disinfectants, specifically looking at the COVID-19 virus in saliva.
So supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light, and I think you said that hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting. Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning, because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number of the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me. So we'll see. But the whole concept of the light, the way it kills it in 1 minute, that's pretty powerful.
All right, so that is that. Let me get your speakers turned off here in case NBC decides they want to play the video again. which they did, and it looks like traffic out there. So that is what everybody's up in arms about. And I didn't hear him say to inject bleach or disinfectant in there, but you saw all the nastiness on Twitter about this. And do remember that encouraging self-harm or suicide to somebody on Twitter is against terms of service. And they do have a report button for something like that. But yeah, that is... it's a stretch, and that was probably poor wording on the president's parts, but he did not say to inject a disinfectant. He asked if there was a way that they could do something like that, but not necessarily use a harmful caustic chemical inside the body. All right, let's move on and see what the Daily Wire has to say about this. This is from Ryan Saavedra. Fact check. No, Trump did not tell people to inject themselves with disinfectant or drink bleach. Left-wing activists made multiple false and misleading claims on Thursday following President Donald Trump's White House Coronavirus Task Force press briefing, in which the president commented on new scientific findings from the Department of Homeland Security. The activists falsely claimed that Trump urged Americans to inject themselves with disinfectant and told people to drink bleach. To understand Trump's remarks, it is important to first understand the full context of what he said at the press briefing, which you guys all got to listen to. Bill Bryan, Undersecretary for Science and Technology at DHS, said at the press briefing, "Our most striking observation to date is the powerful effect that solar light appears to have on killing the virus, both surfaces and in the air. We've seen a similar effect with both temperature and humidity, as well as where increasing the temperature and humidity, or both, is generally less favorable to the virus," which we've been talking about since the beginning of this. Brian talked about the half-life of the coronavirus on surfaces like door handles and stainless steel surfaces, saying that when they inject UV rays into the mix along with higher temperatures and increased humidity, that the virus dies quickly. The virus does not survive well in droplets of saliva, or yeah, it does. And that's important because a lot of testing being done is not necessarily being done, number one, with the COVID-19 virus, and number two, in saliva or respiratory fluids, Brian continued. And thirdly, the virus dies quickest in the presence of direct sunlight under these conditions. Brian continued by noting that DHS also tested if certain types of disinfectant could kill the coronavirus. We've tested bleach, we've tested isopropyl alcohol on the virus, specifically in saliva or respiratory fluids. I can tell you that the bleach will kill the virus in 5 minutes, Brian said. Isopropyl alcohol will kill the virus in 30 seconds, and that's with no manipulation, no rubbing, just bring it on and leaving it go. You rub it, and it goes away even faster. Brian added, "We're also looking at other disinfectants, specifically looking at the COVID-19 virus in saliva." Immediately following these remarks, Trump said, "So I'm going to ask Bill a question that probably some of you are thinking of it, and you're totally into that world, which I find to be very interesting. So supposing when we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light, I think you said it hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it." We literally just listened to this, so I'm going to skip ahead off of this one. A few moments later, ABC News reporter John Carl asked Brian, "The president mentioned the idea of a cleaner, bleach and isopropyl alcohol emerging. There's no scenario where that could be injected into a person, is there?" "No, I'm here to talk about the finds that we had in the study," Brian responded. "We don't do that within the lab at our labs." Trump then clarified his remarks. "It wouldn't be through injections. You're talking about almost a cleaning and sterilization of an area. Maybe it works. Maybe it doesn't work, but it certainly has a big effect if it's on a stationary object." Trump later raised the possibility of whether UV rays could kill the coronavirus if it was on a person's skin, in particular if it were on the hands. "If they're outside, right, and their hands are exposed to the sun, will that kill it, as though it were a piece of metal or something else?" Trump asked. "I don't want to say it will at the same rate because it's a non-porous surface, but we do know that we looked into the worst case scenario and the virus lives longer on non-porous surfaces, so porous surfaces it doesn't live quite as long. So in theory, what you said is correct." Left-wing activist Chris D. Jackson wrote that Trump had urged Americans to inject themselves with disinfectant. Jacob McCobe, a former speechwriter for Obama Justice Department, wrote on Twitter that Trump had told people to drink bleach. Others have repeated these false claims. Yeah, and once again, I still haven't seen any indication that he actually said to inject disinfectant or drink bleach, but he was wondering if there was a way that we could find a medicine or something that we could inject that would do the same thing, is what I took out of that. But of course, especially since I listened to it off NBC, oh, excuse me, COVID cough. Of course, because I listened to it on NBC, it was cut to sound the worst way that they could possibly do it. All right. This is a Fox News article, but it's legitimately saying the exact same thing that we just read, so I'm actually going to jump by that one here too. And we're going to move on to the next one. Trump says he may extend coronavirus social distancing guidelines to early summer. This is from CNBC, from Kevin Breuninger and Amanda Macias. President Donald Trump said Thursday that his administration may extend its national social distancing guidelines until early in the summer or later. we may go up beyond that, Trump said in a White House press briefing when asked if the federal guidelines would need to be extended at least until the start of summer. We're going to have to see where it is. I think people are going to know, just out of common sense. At some point, we won't have to do that, but until we feel safe, we're going to be extending. Trump's remarks came a day after multiple White House acknowledged that the U.S. would likely still be dealing with the deadly coronavirus by fall and winter, when the flu season kicks up. The federal guidelines, which were first shared in mid-March and had already been extended once, were set to expire at the end of April. The White House did not immediately respond to CNBC's request for additional comment on the president's remark. While the White House guidelines were not legally binding on states, many of which have implemented their own social distancing rules, they recommend severe restrictions on normal behavior, such as eating out at restaurants or socializing in groups. The news that the federal guidance may be extended again comes as Trump and state leaders more aggressively look ahead to reopening the economy, which has been devastated by the coronavirus, and harsh measures taken to contain it. Trump had previously said he wanted to see packed churches on Easter Sunday, a comment that was met with a wave of criticism from health experts. On April 16th, the Trump administration released a new list of recommendations on how the state leaders can begin the process of reopening the economies. Excuse me. Vice President Mike Pence said on Thursday that 16 states have released formal reopening plans to lift their coronavirus restrictions. William Bryant, an official with the Science and Technology Division of the Department of Homeland Security, also said at the briefing that recent findings suggest an increased exposure to sunlight, heat, and humidity have a powerful effect on killing the virus. Well, they're not going to the virus is not going to survive well in July in Wisconsin, then, I can tell you that. The virus is dying at a much more rapid pace from exposure to higher temperatures and just from exposure to humidity, Bryant said. Well, Arizona's screwed. Oh, that's the end of the article. I thought there was going to be more than that. All right, let's move on. No, it's seriously, I don't know what we're going to do and what the economy is going to do and what people are going to do when they can't keep going to work. And like I said, I know that ZipRecruiter is still looking, they're still pumping jobs out for people. And I know some of them are some of those work from home positions, and because I look in sales. So if you search keyword sales on ZipRecruiter, every insurance agent wants you to go drive around in your own personal vehicle and rack up 300,000 miles on your own personal vehicle to go try to sell insurance to companies that already have insurance. And it's usually the only thing that you find. But there are other things that are popping up, and people are hiring around here. I don't know how it is in the rest of the country. I have no idea, but I know that they're hiring pretty aggressively around here. So this may be a point where people need to go out and find something new, but yeah. Some of these other small businesses are going to disappear if we keep this closed too much longer. All right, let's move on here. This is from the New York Post. Harvard professor wants to ban homeschooling because it's authoritarian. Okay. This is from Salim Elgar. A Harvard University law professor has sparked controversy after calling for a ban on homeschooling. Elizabeth Bartholet told Harvard Magazine that it gives parents authoritarian control over their kids and can even expose them to white supremacy, oh my god, and misogyny. The issue is, do we think that parents should have 24/7 essential authoritarian control over their children from ages 0 to 18? I think that's dangerous, Bartholet said. I think it's always dangerous to put powerful people in charge of the powerless and give the powerful ones total authority. Bartholet's comments were met with backlash from homeschooling parents who said she unfairly stereotyped the practice. Aside from its biting one-sided portrayal of homeschooling families that mischaracterizes the vast majority of today's homeschoolers, it is filled with misinformation and incorrect data, wrote Harvard graduate and homeschooler Carrie McDonald in a letter to the magazine's editor. She is concerned with families having this power, while I worry about giving that power to government, McDonald said. Writing in Forbes, education policy analyst Mike McShane and Bartholet Bartholet relied on lazy stereotypes. Banning homeschooling would thrust thousands of children who left traditional schools and to avoid maltreatment back into the very schools where they were victimized, he said. Parental discontent with the public and private schools has popularized homeschooling in recent years. Plus, and this is something that I've mentioned before, the access to information for homeschooling is much, much higher at this point than it ever was in years past. Excuse me. You now carry, most of us, a device in your pocket, and of course, Stix always tries to say that's your tracking chip, but you carry a device in your pocket that can give you access to any piece of information you could ever want on a moment's notice. So the access to the information is there, and the access and ability to fact check it are also there. So that's going to make a lot of this a lot easier. And if you don't want to use your phone, your laptop can get you the access to the same kind of information, and sometimes more powerful graphics and visual aids on top of this too. So this has become something that's a lot easier to do. Roughly 4% of American children are now educated outside the public or private school system, a higher percentage than both parochial and charter schools, respectively, according to the article. The author of the piece, Erin O'Donnell, asserted that 90% of homeschool parents are conservative Christians, according to the study. And there it is. Bartholet asserted that some of them are extreme religious ideologues. Yeah, that's their freedom to be. Who question science and promote female subservience and white supremacy. Some. Yeah, I'll give them that. According to the article. But McDonald said homeschoolers are now coming from all corners and becoming increasingly diverse, both ideologically and demographically. She noted a marked increase in black, Hispanic, urban, and secular homeschoolers as evidence. Yeah, I mean, I knew a kid, I know him still, he's a fairly liberal guy, he's a fairly lefty guy, he's a big Obama guy, and he got homeschooled. And that was before he had all the access to information off of that. But, I mean, he turned out, he was an Obama guy, but we'll take it as it is. But, I mean, he turned out okay off of it. And for the most part, I mean, it was a religious home, but they pulled him because he was getting bullied for being, I don't know, small or something or other. They pulled him because he was being bullied, and they said he had ADHD. I don't believe in ADHD, but they said he has it. So they said that the traditional curriculum couldn't handle him. So they pulled him out and they homeschooled him over that. And then he went off to college. He got a good job and he's doing all right. So, I mean, yeah, it's not always just a religious thing. Sometimes it is bullying, social distance, various other aspects, the indoctrination of the public school system, the indoctrination of the teachers union. There's so many other reasons that they could do this, but of course they just want to see that these parents question science. But I do find it interesting that This woman also believes, Bartholet also believes, that the authoritarianism at home is wrong, but the authoritarianism that you get in the public school system is somehow okay. All right, we're going to move on off of this one. We got another one here from the Daily Wire. Ocasio-Cortez, only House Democrat to vote against funding to help Americans. This is also from Ryan Saavedra. Socialist Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was the only House Democrat to oppose funding to help Americans who are struggling from the coronavirus pandemic, which originated in China. The move by the far-left lawmaker comes after she cheered American job losses on Twitter earlier in the week when she learned that the oil industry was being ravaged by the pandemic. Ocasio-Cortez tweeted, "You absolutely love to see it. This, along with record low interest rates, means it's the right time for worker-led mass investment in green infrastructure to save our planet." Cough. The $484 billion bill that the House voted on Thursday included $310 billion infusion to the Paycheck Protection Program, a forgivable loan program that ran out of money last week amid skyrocketing demand from hurting small businesses, Fox News reported. It's a joke when Republicans say they have urgency around this bill, Ocasio-Cortez falsely claimed. The only folks that have urgency around are folks like Ruth's Chris Steakhouse and Shake Shack. Those are people getting assistance in this bill. You're not trying to fix this bill for mom and pops. Senate Republicans were ready to move forward on the bill 2 weeks ago, but Senate Democrats blocked it, a move that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi praised at the time. Earlier this week, after she celebrated American job losses in the oil and gas industry, Ocasio-Cortez said that people should not go back to work when the economy reopens. When we talk about this idea of reopening society, only in America does when the president tweets about liberation, does he mean go back to work, Ocasio-Cortez said. When we have this discussion about going back or reopening, I think a lot of people should just say, no, we're not going back to that. We're not going back to working 70 hours weeks just so we can put food on the table and not even feel any sort of semblance of security in our lives. Michelle Caruso Cabrera, a Democrat who is challenging Ocasio-Cortez in the primary race for New York's 14th congressional district, slammed the former bartender for her antics. AOC votes against more aid for our overburdened hospitals in the Bronx and Queens, and indeed the whole nation, Caruso Cabrera said. AOC votes against more coronavirus testing for the Bronx and Queens, and indeed the whole nation. AOC votes against aid to small businesses for the Bronx and Queens, and indeed the whole nation. Caruso Cabrera added, This is outrageous and just plain wrong. Nothing could underscore more clearly why AOC's anti-democratic party pro-socialist agenda needs to be rejected once and for all. Hear, hear. So, she voted against it because it's not big enough. And we still have no idea where this $484 billion came from. But yeah, let's keep blowing out the budget and let's let the Democratic Socialists blow it out for us. All right. House Democratic leader Steny Hoyer adjusting to legislating the virtual way. This is from Fox News. From Marissa Schultz. Representative Steny Hoyer is a people person. That affable quality serves him well as the House Majority Leader as he routinely checks the pulse of his Democratic caucus. Normally, he'll collect the concerns of members throughout the day in the halls of the Capitol Hill and in conversations on the House floor beyond the scheduled caucus meetings. But quarantine changed all that. I miss the people, Hoyer said, now working from home. The number 2 in the House, Hoyer manages the legislative schedule, coordinates policy priorities, and communicates with the press every week on the Democrats' message. But without the benefit of short conversations throughout the day in between meetings and votes, Hoyer says virtual legislating has been challenging. He's working harder and longer. With phone conferences as the prime chance to hear from members who are scattered across the country, the participation in the caucus calls has increased and the meetings will take more time. And the stakes couldn't be higher as Hoyer is working on massive coronavirus relief legislation for the country, developing an unprecedented vision for remote voting in the House and helping bring relief for Maryland's 5th congressional district. I am learning more about how one communicates other than in person, as everyone is doing, and working hard to address the needs of my district and continue to ensure the Congress is doing the people's business, Hoyer said. Hoyer described how his daily routine has changed in a Q&A with Fox News, but I'm not going to go on and read the full Q&A off of that. But yeah, I mean, that's something that we do need to understand and adjust, and this could be happening in the near future. And until we get the great holograms that we saw in Star Wars, which I'm watching the Clone Wars again, and I see this all the time, where we can be in person but not necessarily in person, we're going to have to find ways to do this because something like this can shut down the government, which, I mean, is not a bad thing, but for whatever reason, they feel they need to go back and forth to work and continue to go and do work. So, and they are the ones that are cutting the checks for the people that are starving. As much as I dislike that, they are the ones that are doing that. So they'll find a way and they'll adjust to it. And if they need to make a new majority leader because of it, then so be it. But yeah, maybe it'll be somebody. Maybe it'll be a 25-year-old girl who texts constantly. She'll be the one that rallies up everybody. All right. Let's talk about that woman in Michigan. Also from Fox News, this is from Dom Colicchio. Michigan Governor Whitmer faces protest outside her home as lawmakers mull curbing her powers. Protesters gathered outside the home of Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer on Thursday. The same day, reports emerged that she plans to extend the state's coronavirus stay-at-home order by 2 weeks until May 15th. Yeah, and that's still not as long as we're having over here, so. The demonstration, dubbed Operation Queen's Castle, featured an image of Whitmer wearing a crown, Fox 2 of Detroit reported. We wanted to send Gretchen Whitmer a message. We didn't want to surrender our liberties for a little temporary safety, Brian Panabacker, who helped organize the protest, told the station. Meanwhile, the Michigan legislature has scheduled a special session for Friday with the goal of creating an oversight committee to review Whitmer's coronavirus orders and possibly strip her of some of her powers, the Detroit Free Press reported. What is the balance of the assembly in Michigan? I'm curious about that. I don't think they're GOP led because it's Michigan, but I would love to see what the balance is. If it's tight, if it's a lot of progressives, or if it's a lot of I doubt it's a lot of progressives because they'd want to be locking it down. But if it's a bunch of Union Democrat types, I could see a lot of this happening. Like I said, in Michigan, I don't think it's a GOP legislature, but it might be. Critics accuse Whitmer, a 48-year-old first-term Democratic governor, of overstepping her authority with a series of measures intended to stem the spread of coronavirus in the state. April 9th revisions in her initial stay-at-home order included bans on visiting friends and relatives or traveling to vacation homes and halts on sales of items such as furniture and garden supplies. In a podcast interview, she also said abortion should continue in the state during the virus outbreak because the procedures were part of life-sustaining health care for women. We're not even going to start that argument right now. In addition, Whitmer came under fire after a no-bid coronavirus-related state contract was awarded to a firm operated by a well-known Democratic consultant who had written that President Trump should get coronavirus ASAP. Whitmer's office later acknowledged that the contract was awarded without adhering to normal protocols. Michigan House Speaker Lee Chatfield, Republican levering, okay, so maybe it is GOP-led, explained the point of Friday's planned session in a Twitter message. The House and Senate will convene tomorrow to create a special oversight committee on COVID-19 to examine our government's response, he wrote. Michigan needs to handle this pandemic seriously yet properly. It's what the people deserve, and we will see that it happens. In another tweet, Chatfield noted that marijuana, lottery tickets, and alcohol had been declared essential, while lawn care, construction, and fishing in a motorized boat had been declared non-essential amid the outbreak. On Monday, Whitmer said she would take a 10% cut to her $159,300 annual salary, and her staffers would take cuts of 5% as the state grapples with the financial fallout of the coronavirus shutdowns. She also continued defending the orders she has issued. $159,000 salary. Wow. I know it's not easy, but the price of losing loved ones is what's at stake, she said, noting that many people who contract the virus show no symptoms but can still spread it. The theme of Thursday's protest in Lansing, the state's capital city, was that many Michiganders who are able to work should be able to do so, Panabaker said. Younger people, healthy people, without putting anybody else in danger, including ourselves and others in danger, should be able to go back to work, Panabaker told Fox 2. So, when Governor Evers got elected over here in Wisconsin, the legislature did a similar thing. It was still GOP controlled, and it continues to be at this point, but they convened together and they passed laws to limit the executive power of the governorship. Now, wish they'd have done that under Walker, but yeah, as soon as the election was over, they convened and they limited some of the gubernatorial powers, and it made it all the way up to the Supreme Court, where they determined it was legal for them to do. And it appears this is what Michigan is doing as well. So, anything to restore balance of power and go back to co-equal branches of government, I'm in support of. And anything that limits executive power, making someone less of a king and more of a law enforcement officer, absolutely go for it. Limit those paychecks too while you're at it. That is excessive. And that's all on the taxpayer dime. All right. Also coming out of Michigan and also coming from Fox, Democrats plan to censure Michigan lawmaker who said that Trump's boosting of hydroxychloroquine saved my life. Yeah, we can't have a Democrat saying, Trump helped me. This is from Andrew O'Reilly. Democrats in Michigan will vote on Saturday to censure one of their colleagues who praised President Trump for advocating the use of an anti-malarial drug that she claimed cured her of COVID-19. The 13th Congressional District Democratic Party organization argues that State Rep. Karen Whitsett broke protocol by meeting with Trump and Vice President Pence during an April 14th meeting of the coronavirus survivors and for crediting hydroxychloroquine with saving her life. Whitsett first made the claim that hydroxychloroquine, a commonly prescribed anti-malarial drug, saved her life during an appearance on Fox News' The Ingraham Angle earlier this month. She said that if it weren't for Trump pushing the drug through the Food and Drug Administration's approval process for off-label use and touting it repeatedly during his daily press briefings, she may not have survived the disease. I really want to say you have given me this opportunity, she said on the show. For me, it saved my life. I only can go by what it is that I have gone through and what my story is. I can't speak for anyone else, so that's not what I'm going to try and do here. I'm only speaking for myself. Earlier this week, however, an analysis of the use of the drug to treat COVID-19 patients in U.S. veterans hospitals found no benefit to using the drug and that there were more deaths among those given hydroxychloroquine versus standard care. The nationwide study was not a rigorous experiment, but with 368 patients, it's the largest look so far of hydroxychloroquine with or without the antibiotic azithromycin for COVID-19, which has killed more than 185,000 people worldwide as of Thursday. The resolution to censure Whitsett does not specifically criticize her comments about hydroxychloroquine, but instead misrepresented the needs and priorities of Democratic leadership to the president and the public. The resolution also says she's participated in events with the Republican Women's Federation of Michigan to express gratitude to the president. The resolution states, according to the copy obtained by the Detroit News, that Whitsett has repeatedly and publicly praised the president's delayed and misguided COVID-19 response efforts in contradiction with the scientifically based and action-oriented response from Michigan's Democratic leadership, endangering the health, safety, and welfare of her constituents, the city of Detroit, and the state of Michigan. So, you worked with the other side, and that's evil, is literally what I'm getting out of this. The 13th Congressional Democratic Group is also upset at Whitsett for making negative comments about the Democratic Party and for refusing to come when asked to attend a screening of candidates for her House district. I don't have time for politics, Whitsett said. That's ridiculous during a pandemic. And they think they have time for a screening. I have people that need me. So this is part of the problem is that, and we see it on both sides, of course, but we see it more prevalently on the left, is that you're not allowed to go and work with the other side. And I can point to plenty of Republicans who would do the same thing at this point. We are not supposed to be a divided, balkanized tribal nation. We are supposed to work together. That's been something I've been advocating ever since I left the left, is that we need to reach across and work together, especially when we have something big like the coronavirus pandemic. We need to take the time. We need to work together. We need to come out for a common good for everybody. Not everybody's ideas are going to be superior, but most importantly, we need to work together. And Whitsett understands this, and her Michigan political party is going to silence her voice because of it. They're going to punish her for trying to work with the other side and get something done. And that is part of the reason I think that we need to vote a lot of these people out come November. We really do, because it's either fall into line or do as I say, or you will be punished. We will take punitive action against you. And if they're going to do that to their own people, imagine what they're going to do to the rest of the country. So keep that in mind as you start to make your decisions throughout the rest of the year as we get towards November. Now, the last thing we do on Friday, of course, is, because I don't read the live chat as we go along, we read the names of everybody who chatted throughout so I can give them the proper thanks. Because as the channel grows, it's going to get harder and harder to do this in a meaningful amount of time. But for now, with almost 200 subs and a handful of people watching during the day, I can take the time and individually thank everybody who came in and chatted. So we will start with who's in today. So let's go over and look at the live chat here. We've got Ron Helton over here. We've got Jessica Green, conservative patriot, showing up at the end. How we doing? Sully Blue is over here. Ron's got the sticker party over in DLive. If you're not on DLive, head on over to DLive, because you can see Ron's famous sticker party over here. There's a good AOC. Yeah. Oh, AOC googly eyes. I like that. Let's see. Who else do we have here? I think that's it for the day, it looks like. No, we got Julia Shrek over here, too. I'm not going to read that on the air, but that's funny. I like that. Oh, I'm getting watched on the big screen. No, not Emma Watson. Dove Cameron all the way. Sorry, Sully Blue. Alright, let's see who else we have over here for the week. And we'll work backwards from today. So, for Thursday, chatters in the live chat were Ron Helton, Sully Blue, Tails303. It was Greedo's Discord server, by the way, Tails, if you're listening. Skeletor the God, who had some spicy takes, of course, and Killer618. Thanks for coming by and checking us out here. On Wednesday, we had Ron Helton, Seawall728, who was my guest this past Monday. Go and check that episode out. I just released it on audio. Sully Blue and Job for 9. Thanks for coming in and chatting. On Tuesday, we had Sully Blue, Ron Helton, and Iyama Fago, John from the Generational Gap. Go over and check their show out. They'll be doing their regular show tonight over on their channel, and also over on freedomscoop.com. Go and check them out. And on Monday, we had Ron Helton, Sergeant Bob, Blippity Blop, my friend from the UK, Saint, the great truck driver who is making sure that everything is going across the country and getting where it needs to be, Sully Blue, and the Dead Tree over on Twitch. I don't get a lot of Twitch traction, but occasionally I do get somebody over on Twitch. So that is going to be it for the week. Now, of course, because of processing times, I'm not going to get this out till later, but because I'm all caught up, I'll make sure that I get it out before I go to bed tonight. And I've got to work early, so it'll be early to bed tonight as well. So the audio platform for this will be out later on tonight. Otherwise, you can catch up on the episodes from earlier on in the week. You can always check us out on the audio platforms. We're on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. And if you want us on another audio platform, just let me know what it is, and I will add it to the mix. I'll apply for it and add it to the mix. Otherwise, you can find this video and all contemporary videos on YouTube, DLive, Twitch, Periscope, Facebook, and on demand on YouTube and over on BitChute.com. Go and check us out. Lastly, you can find all of my videos, all of the Generational Gap videos, all the Freckles and Brit videos, all the Wyatt Birkenhoff videos, all the Stephen Ignoramus videos, and all the R-Rated Conservative videos over on freedomscoop.com. Go and check us out over there. So, go forward into your weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, avoid the COVID if you can. even though most of us, I think, have already had it at this point, and never take the words of bloggers, podcasters, or journalists as gospel. Find all the facts and draw your own conclusions. Take care, everybody, and have a good weekend.